We have Rhett Matthew joining us here on Ref the District to talk about Week 1 against the Bucs. Let's go. Joining us for the first one here is going to be Rhett Matthew, is going to be our Bucs representative coming from the Cannon Fire podcast. Rhett, thank you for joining us here. I know I have a applause here. But we'll give you an air horn until I can find that applause button there. But how's it going, Rhett?
Fellas, how we doing? A little under 24 hours to go until the start of the NFL regular season, and I can't wait.
I'm right there with you, right there.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. Now, it was a better season for the Bucs last year under somebody who I'm fond of, being a OU guy, and you guys signed him. How much do you believe in Baker Mayfield, is resurgence there with you in Tampa Bay?
It took about 3/4 of the 2023 season for him to officially win me over. One thing that we know for sure about quarterback play in Tampa, for at least the most part, we didn't have consistent quarterback play. So I was waiting for that from Baker. And I know the odds were stacked against him. So many different teams in so many years, so many different offensive coordinators. You know, he finally finds a home in Tampa. Hopefully we can find consistent offensive coordinator here in Liam Cohen. Dave Canales gets the job in Carolina. But me personally, I'm a Baker fan. I'm on the train. He's a pretty divisive guy around town among the fan base, depending on who you talk to. A lot of people think that he's not going to take the Bucs any further than a first or second round loss in the playoffs. And a lot of people think that he is undisputedly a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. So I definitely think you're in that contract. You know, last year it was the performance in Green Bay with a perfect passer rating, and then he followed it up by kicking the hell out of the beat up Jaguars at that time. But he played well. He was playing consistent football. Bucs went 6-2 down the stretch last year, so I'm excited for Baker. I hope that this Liam Cohen offense comes with an improved running game, so he gets a little bit of help. He's got some damn good pass catchers in Tampa. Guys are getting paid, which you love to see as well. Jason Light did a really good job of that over the offseason. So I think he's in a good spot. I think this is one of the best spots he's been in so far in his NFL career. And, you know, the guy is number 1 overall pick for a reason. I think he's got a lot left in the tank. And personally, I'm excited for what he can bring to the table. Consistency is what he needs, and I think he's got that here for the most part.
Rhett, we've got a little something here in Washington. We call it Ashburn Syndrome. And if you are from this area, you know all about it. But Ashburn is where the Commanders training camp is located. And what happens every training camp year, every offseason, we see everything that's coming out of there and we get excited, and all of a sudden we think we're going to win the Super Bowl. And so we call that Ashburn Syndrome, because obviously we get disappointed when the year actually takes place. Is there something in Tampa that's similar to that, where you look every year and you sort of get that feeling that, yeah, the Bucs are going to the Super Bowl and we're going to be that team regardless of sort of what happens in the offseason?
Yeah, I feel like when you've got a diehard fan base, there's always going to be a subsection of people who are, 17-0, Super Bowl no matter what, baby. And I understand, like the fan in me, I get it. It's hard for me to pick the Bucs to lose games. Like on the show, we'll do a season predictions, but week to week, I don't usually ever pick them to lose. So, there's always going to be a section of people who feel that way. But I think a lot of people understand where this Bucs team is at, and, how many things did go right for them last season to end up in the situation they were in. It was a tough stretch for them, especially after that Houston game, losing to CJ Stroud in that fashion, and then going on, I think, to lose 5 out of their last 6 games right in the middle of the season, right as, you're hoping for the playoff chase to shore up. So the NFC South being the division that it is definitely helps, but, they're able to win the division and play well down the stretch and get a spot in the playoffs. They beat up a beat up Eagles team. And then I thought they played pretty well for the most part against a really good Detroit team, who is now maybe the standard for a lot of these NFC teams. So, I think a lot of things have to go right for the Bucs to ultimately be looked at as a Super Bowl contender. And most people understand, but as far as like that rabid fan base that is, Bucs all day, 17-0, I definitely think they're always going to be out there. And like I said, I get it. I can't pick them to lose. It's tough.
Hey, Rhett, this offseason, what did Tampa Bay do make you think you guys are going to win more than 9 games rather than finishing 9-8 like we did last year? You won the division with 9-8, but you also it was just 9 wins.
It's
Anything
also
happened
an awful South. NFC South is bad.
this offseason that makes you think that you guys can achieve to double-digit wins?
Someone's got to win it, man. Bucks have been doing it well these last couple of years. They've been holding it down. But, I think something that people are talking about, but I don't think they understand the impact that it has, is the Bucks were able to re-sign all of their impact players. Like, these are franchise guys who are hopefully going to be here for the long run. Levante David, I don't know if this is going to be his last season, but if it is, he's wrapping up a 13-year career in Tampa Bay. Will Golston, a guy on our defensive line who's not talked about enough, he's also headed into, I think, his 12th or 13th season here in Tampa. Mike Evans has been playing 10 years doing the thing. So, Antoine Winfield Jr., Tristan Wirfs. They did sign an extension with Chase McLaughlin, who statistically had the best Bucks kicker season ever last season. They're able to hang on to these guys who are hopefully going to be fixtures in the franchise for a long time. And as a team, the culture is at a point where it feels like they have been working up to this point for a very long time. Jason Light got the job in 2014. Mike Evans was his first draft pick, and he's had a lot of misses since then. Don't get me wrong. The 2016 draft class is really not anything to be remembered. I'm a big Noah Spence fan. I thought he did dirty. He's my boy. My buddy Evan will agree. But, for the most part, he's had a couple of draft classes to forget, but the hits that he's had have become hopefully, the standard for this franchise and the player that they want. But as far as, beyond those moves, a couple of things that they did in the offseason here, I think between the draft and free agency, bringing back Jordan Whitehead from the New York Jets to play next to Antoine Winfield Jr. in that safety room, I think is huge, because the Bucks have had a lot of players come and go in that safety room. They've had a lot of studs. Mike Edwards, who I think is in Buffalo now, was a pretty good player. They traded away Carlton Davis, their number 1 corner, to Detroit this past offseason. They free up some draft capital. They bring in Jalen McMillan at wide receiver, who was the pick that they got from that Carlton Davis trade from Detroit. And then they bring in Bucky Irving at running back, who I like Rashad White. I don't know if I'm as bullish on Rashad White at running back as a lot of other Bucks fans are, just because I still need to see some more consistency. But hopefully this new offensive scheme is able to open that up. Hopefully Bucky Irving can come in and play well. We need a running back to hit the hole, and he's been doing that well. But going back to Jordan Whitehead playing next to Antoine Winfield Jr., this guy was a stud in Tampa on the Super Bowl team. He is, the thunder to Winfield's lightning at this point. And I think getting those guys back together is really going to help, and hopefully for the Bucks produce more turnovers and takeaways from the secondary, which, to be honest, we weren't exactly getting from a guy like Carlton Davis. Jamel Dean stepping up at cornerback 1, Zion McCollum at cornerback 2. Little iffy on McCollum. I like him a lot. The Bucks like his development. He took a huge leap last year, took a lot more snaps. But, I think really the Buccaneers just maintaining a culture. And listen, I know the NFC South is what it is, but the Bucks, for as long as I can remember, or at least the last 20 years, have never maintained a culture of being a winning team. Right? They haven't had these franchise guys for years and years on end. Like, they've always kind of had leftover free agents, guys who want to retire and finish out their career in Tampa. And now it feels like you're putting together a good team of young enough talent, second youngest team in the NFL behind Green Bay. It feels like they are just getting to a place where they can consistently call themselves a winning team. Now it feels like they're building something with the ceiling that Baker Mayfield may still have. So I think there's a couple of moves that they made this offseason, that can ultimately point to them getting better than they were last year. We'll have to see on the offense. My biggest question mark is this new offensive system, the run game, how consistent that can be. But I think just upholding their own standard, bringing back these guys and showing the rest of the roster, like, hey, if you put in the work, and you play well, you're going to get paid, and hopefully Tampa's a place guys want to play. Jason Light has done a really good job of doing right by his players for the most part. So I think they got a little bit better in that sense. And also going into week 1, knowing what their identity is this year. Baker with his second season. Again, new offensive coordinator, new offensive system, but you got Todd Bowles. He's been head coach for a couple of seasons now, got a couple of playoff appearances under his belt, and these guys like playing for him. So I think they're in a good spot, and I do think they got a little bit better this year. Just have to play consistently well and obviously keep the mistakes down.
Well, you did mention several of those defensive pieces that you guys brought in and kind of have there for you. So that's kind of where I want to stay, but I'm going to attack it from a different angle. I'm going to attack it from the perspective of Jaden Daniels. This is his NFL debut. How do you think, a skill set like Jaden Daniels, pretty deep ball, got some wheels, how does that match up against this Tampa Bay defense?
Honestly, it depends on what he's able to do with his legs, to be honest with you. A lot of offensive coordinators who are good at spreading out a defense have come to know that that's a weakness of Todd Bowles. Mobile quarterbacks can be a weakness of Todd Bowles. One thing for sure about Bowles is he's going to live and die by the blitz. So I think Jaden Daniels in that first half especially, they are going to bring the house. And, another thing that he should probably expect, too, is I think after playing Todd Bowles for 4 quarters, there's not going to be a defensive front for the rest of the season that he hasn't seen, just because Todd Bowles does such a good job at disguising what he's bringing at the quarterback, whether it is a blitz or not. There were a couple of points last season and the year before where guys like when Ndamukong Suh was still in Tampa, he was lining up at the outside linebacker position. You had him playing inside linebacker, and Levante David was lined up as your edge rusher. We've seen Vita Vea drop back into coverage before at 350 pounds. So, there's a lot of different looks that he's going to throw at this young quarterback. But I think if he is able to adjust and, play, I don't want to say play well, but play consistently enough and not turn the ball over after having to adjust, because he is a rookie quarterback. It's going to be a lot of pressure early on. I think he could be an issue for the Bucs, but getting the ball out of his hands quickly and spreading out that defense, making the big guys in the interior have to run to the sidelines is really what's going to slow the Bucs down.
Rhett, tell us a little bit about offensively with your new OC with Liam Cohen. If he is a guy that you're excited about, or are you worried about losing Canales to Carolina? What sort of philosophy does he run on offense?
I'm definitely not worried about losing Canales. I'm not going to say that he was overrated as a coordinator, because he was great. I mean, he was obviously good enough to get hired, or Carolina deemed him good enough to get hired as their head coach after one season in Tampa calling plays. But, some of his philosophies really pissed me off. We were running quick pitches to the outside, trailing this in the third quarter 20-0. On New Year's Eve in a game that decided the NFC South. Like, the Bucs could have clinched that day against New Orleans. It was on my birthday too. I was in the stadium pissed, just standing there watching us, run these ridiculous run plays and, ultimately light first and second downs on fire. So I think Liam Cohen brings a different philosophy with the run game that a lot of people are excited about. From what we understand, this new system with Cohen is more of the same. Kind of runs along the same baseline of what a Canales offense was, but the terminology is a little bit different. You're using some of these guys differently, but the run schemes are what is different. The Bucs have a lot of different, I don't want to say a lot of different looks because it's not the regular season yet. We can really only go off of what we saw in camp in the preseason, but it seems like the Bucs are running more out of formations that benefit the running backs, benefit the run blockers. You're, bringing guys closer to the line of scrimmage. You're running out of these bunch formations, so you get more help along the line of scrimmage there. And, when you have a running back who can just attack the line of scrimmage like Bucky Irving, hopefully we can see a couple of big breakaway runs this year, 20, 30, 40 yarders, because we didn't get a lot of those last season. But this new philosophy in the run game and hopefully consistent numbers is something that a lot of people are looking forward to. We know Baker Mayfield can throw the football, maybe a couple more interceptions this season because he did get that contract. He's playing more confident, right? He's got some good pass catchers in Tampa, but we'll see. He doesn't really have to worry about getting benched or anything like that. Bucs are definitely married to him at this point, but if he has a little bit of a better run game, and especially the interior offensive line is able to hold up and provide some good lanes, I think the Bucs potentially winning a couple of games this season by controlling the clock with the run, like that's where they want to be. I think that's the benchmark of improvement, because they have been historically bad in the run game these last 2 or 3 seasons. Like, it's not even funny. It has been awful. So hopefully that's the biggest change. But I think as far as Baker and the rest of the guys, it's going to be more of the same.
Rhett, do you have any humongous concern outside of the new philosophy in the run game that you have for the Tampa Bay team this year? Something that you are extremely worried about, especially heading into week 1.
It is the run game. As much as I am, Bucky Irving still coming in as a rookie running back, looked really good in the preseason. Consistently a guy who's averaging over 3.5, 4 yards per carry, and you love to see that. But I think just consistency, good situational play calling down the stretch, realizing that, hey, if we're trailing by 20 points here and we got to start making something happen, we don't need to hand the ball off out of the shotgun. Playing clean football, things like that are all par for the course. But the run game, the consistency of Rachaad White and Bucky Irving, Sean Tucker is a guy who is going to be the third running back for the Bucs this year, earned that roster spot. He was on the team, started the season last year, had a couple of carries, and then kind of went away after week 3. Was more of a reserve special teams guy, but he had a really strong preseason. He could be a presence later on in the season, hopefully, if the Bucs decide to use him. He was a good guy, good running back out of Syracuse. But between the run game and then on the defensive side of the ball, I would say the pass rush, the lack of depth at pass rush. Randy Gregory
we can relate to.
Randy Gregory wasn't going to be a difference maker in Tampa Bay. I think we would be lucky to get 3 or 4 sacks out of the guy, to be honest with you, but that was a disaster, right? So now you're out. Randy Gregory, he was officially released a couple of weeks ago. And then you look at the depth on the defensive line, like it seems like all of your major playmakers are on the interior here. Yaya Diaby at outside linebacker, I'm very bullish on. I like him a lot. 8.5 sacks last year as a rookie, and he didn't play for the first quarter of the season, which is insane. I don't think enough people were talking about him. Kalijah Cansey in the interior, also a dog. And then, of course, Vita Vea, a lot of people know him. He's slimmed down quite a bit. I think he's down like 20 to 30 pounds this year, hopefully going to be in the field a little bit more. But behind these guys at outside linebacker, you've got Anthony Nelson, who the Buccaneers gave, I think it was a 2-year contract to not long ago. And he's steady Eddie. You know what you're going to get with him. He's going to get you 5 or 6 sacks a year, rotational talent. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who they drafted after the Super Bowl, first-round pick out of Washington. I mean, he was pick 32, but he was first-round pick out of Washington. He hasn't been what they want him to be. His development just hasn't been there. He's very good at setting the edge. He does a couple of good things on tape, but he's really good at getting into the backfield and missing the play. Very tall, lanky guy. I like watching him play, but he misses the quarterback. He can't get those sacks that he should. So he's got a lot of pressure this year. The Bucs potentially going to move on from him because they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. And then, you got Chris Braswell, who's a rookie out of Alabama, 2nd-round pick. I like him a lot as well, but he's, more of a raw player at this point, kind of just working on power and talent. And it's going to be an adjustment for him in the NFL for sure once he starts playing some of these premier offensive tackles. You got the Lions in week 2, and the Bucs schedule doesn't get any easier after that.
Well, it sounds like the two teams actually, Rhett, have a lot in common because we have maybe questionable edge rushers, superior defensive tackles, right? The interior line 1 through 4 for Washington looks pretty good on paper. And so those kind of things kind of line up. And you're mentioning a lot of names that we kind of talked about in the up to the draft process. So it seems like maybe these two teams are closer in my mind now than what they were before. But you probably teased your answer to this already. This will be the last one here. We'll let you go, Rhett. How do you see this game playing out? Who ends up on top, and how's it kind of work out?
Come on.
I kind of said earlier that one thing the Bucs have going for them this year is that they kind of know their identity headed into week 1. I know there were some personnel changes. We've talked a lot about that new offense, but I do think the Bucs are the better team headed into this matchup. I just think that the consistency is there. I think this is a roster that has been together. I know Todd Bowles gets a lot of slack depending on who you talk to, but he's been head coach in Tampa for a little while now. Like, this is a group with some cohesion. It's the home opener. Obviously, you want to put on a show for the fans as well. So I think the Bucs are going to come out of the gate here, especially wanting to pick up where they left off. A good performance against Detroit in the playoffs, but they hate the way that game ended, right? Just critical mistakes down the stretch, some things you couldn't come back from. Got to play cleaner football, and they know that. They know the level that they have been. They know that last year they exceeded expectations. They exceeded my expectations last year for sure. I think I think I picked him with 7 wins last year. I was kind of iffy on the Baker Mayfield project, but I do think if things go right for the Bucs, they're going to be the better team here. So I think it'll be a close game. I think Jaden Daniels is going to give them fits for a long time. They could not shake the bug of rookie quarterbacks. You saw what CJ Stroud did to them last year, Brock Purdy a couple of years ago in his first start. So it's going to be a good game, but I got the Bucs winning by a field goal. I'll say 24-21.
Ooh. All right, okay. Competitive game on our end. Stoner, what do you have?
Yeah, I'm kind of probably right there with you. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I think the over-under is right there, right about 44 or 45, something like that. I just think both defenses are going to excel. So I'm just for the sake of not doing the exact same score, I'm going to say 23-20. It's awfully close. 23-20 Tampa.
Trev?
Oh, man. He mentioned identity, and we do not have that yet because of our 61% roster turnover from last year. A bunch of different faces, different styles, different schemes, all that happening, and we haven't really put that to test in a meaningful game yet. And I think we're going to come out a little bit shaky, still not knowing who we are, still trying to figure that out. You guys have that advantage. But I do think the Commanders will come out on top just because I'm never going to pick the other team to win. Commanders win 27-16.
Ooh, that's
close in the beginning, and then we run away with it.
Spicy. Now, here's the thing. Week 1 is super unpredictable in the NFL. There's always going to be games that are just going to be wild that you never would have thought would be wild. And that's going to be this game in Tampa Bay, Washington, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going to go 31-24. And I'm also going to go Washington, Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels unlocked and doing crazy things, the unknown. Maybe it's that burgundy and gold glasses, but that's where I'm going to go right here. Rhett, we appreciate you jumping on here with us on Ref the District. You can catch him on his own Believe podcast, the Cannon Fire podcast. And, he's got all that fantastic Tampa Bay stuff there. We appreciate you again, Rhett, for joining us.
Should be a great game, fellas. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you again. Dan Quinn spent all those years in Atlanta. He's got a lot of experience against a team like the Bucs, so I'm looking forward to it, guys. Good luck this season. Thank you again.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate you.